how can I continue to be more impactful by spreading myself a little bit further past my job into other companies that are younger, fresher, trying to be more innovative, can move faster? How can I do something with purpose, like joining a board of directors for a nonprofit, right? So then I could take all the skills that I've learned from my job and these advisory roles and use it in a place that they need, to further the community and help them. And then more recently, I've been using that in the campaign to stop Asian hate, right? Like there's a lot of hate crimes happening against my community right now. And what I'm doing is literally unloading every single skill that I have, media training, marketing strategy, cutting assets, to help as many organizations as possible to get the word out there that, we are being attacked. It's about seeing what kind of impact you can make with the short amount of time that you have here.
Wow, Ryan, that was all over the board. I mean, I kind of felt a little bit of everything here. We kind of danced around. We started with his professional versatility. He's been at just about everywhere: Nike, Facebook, Airbnb, Snap, and then what I like about where we took the conversation, and Eric went there with us, was just how tough a time this is right now.
Yeah, and super relevant. He shared some emotional backstory with us, and he's written an article that went viral that everybody should take a chance to read. Lots of stuff going on, obviously, in our country right now that's racially driven, and Eric talks to us about that. But we do spend some time just on his success in his career and what he thinks got him there. We talk a lot about relationships and his humbleness and openness to learn from every team that he works with. And I really like that because I think it has parlayed into the things that he's doing for the community as well.
And as an activist and as a father of a child, bringing him up in this sort of crazy world we're living in right now, like what haunts him as an Asian American with everything that's going on right now. So we touch on a little bit of everything in this episode. What's up, Toda? Good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, so you've seen a few things. You can't help but notice when you do the appropriate LinkedIn stalking. I mean, you got, you've been at Airbnb, Nike, Snap, my guy, Taylor Shoup, from a pretty short stint at Stitch Fix.
Yeah.
He's doing all right, Shoup. You're also an advisor. I love what you're doing with women in sports tech. And yes, you are now the global head of marketing, global head of social marketing at Facebook. Just awesome to see you zag all over the board. Do you have a favorite? Can you even do that? Can you say, do you have a favorite child and all that?
Oh man, do I have a favorite? I don't. I mean, everything that I've done in my career has tried to hit on different passions, different skills that I wanted to grow. Obviously, being a kid of the 90s, especially like one that was around the advent of the internet, I was always immersed in community online. I started a lot. I begged my dad for a computer when I was in middle school, and he's like, "No way, I'm not gonna give you a computer in your room. Like, no way, man. It's like, especially like this is a desktop, right? It's not like an iPad. It's not like a laptop. This is a desktop computer, and those were expensive back then. But I begged him, and he's like, all right. So he gives me one. And literally, the first website I went to was called Nike Talk, and Nike Talk was an online forum started by a bunch of guys that just loved shoes and sneaker culture and streetwear culture. And I got on there, contributed as much as I could in like theories and drops and all these different, like why certain shoes were created. And I just became immersed in it. One, because I grew up in the 90s. And so I loved Nike and NBA culture, and I'm all about it. And so being able to do this on the internet was so interesting to me, and being a part of a community like that kind of led to my excitement to joining Facebook for the first time in 2008. because it was this larger community and everybody was on it and everyone was, sharing pictures and their life and stuff. And it just played on that obsession that I had with community and the internet. And again, like through my career, through Facebook, then going to Nike because again, Nike talk, and I wanted to be a part of that culture and I wanted to understand what it's like to be a Nike marketer, which again are like cream of the crop. That's like, that's like NBA All-Star level, right? Pro Bowl level, right? To go to Nike and work for there. And then throughout my career, going to Snapchat, Airbnb, being a CMO at Gap Inc., and then now back at Facebook, I think that it's all played in my obsession and ambitions to grow communities for cool products that I just love.
So I know we have a lot of people listening, but just to sort of paint the picture here, Eric has probably a better, cooler, pimped out microphone than we have. But even more interesting is over your shoulder, just to sort of validate the Nike junkie in you. Maybe talk to me about those squares in the back. Is that Jordan dunking?
Yeah. So that's the big three. So what you have here, it's a very limited edition print given to me by my friend Philip Perkovic over at Google. It's the big three. It's Rodman, Jordan, and Pippen, made by an ex-Nike designer, Darian Burks. Very limited edition. I got to print it. And then on the left-hand side of me, it is the Max 100 print. So it's all these different iterations of the Air Max 1 by Matt Stevens, another great artist. And then on the right side of me, it's the Battle of the Bay poster. I'm from the Bay Area, and I'm a Giants fan. And so it represents Giants losing for sure. But I remember it being one of the first memories I have because of the earthquake. It's like literally, if I think about being 5 years old, which I was at the time, no, 4 years old. Yeah, 4 years old at the time. Literally the only memory I have from that time period is the earthquake. And so that's why I have it up there. It's just, it's a crazy memory.
All right. In the spirit of, by the way, we're San Diego people, so we're not going to do that conversation about baseball right now.
Thank you.
We're not going to do that right now. But all right, let's go back. Just you're a storyteller too. So in the spirit of keeping you on your toes, if you had to give one business takeaway for anyone listening to take away from Rodman, Pippen, and Jordan, I'm listening. Where do you go? Give us one for each.
The big thing about Rodman was that you got to live your truth, man. It's like, you are who you are. Don't try to be anybody else. Don't try to be unapologetic about it. Don't try to assimilate. And those are all things that I've taken with me through business, right? I think there's a lot of people that want me to be a certain way and they want me to act a certain way or they believe that I am a certain way. Like, you don't know how many times people have mistaken me for the IT guy or for someone in finance. Oh, wow. You know what I mean? And like, I'm like, no, man, I'm a creative. I'm a marketer. Like, that's who I am. And they're like, what? It's crazy. But like, I'm unapologetically that, and that's okay. Right. And so I think Rodman really represents that type of passion for yourself, passion for representing yourself. And I look at Pippen, right? Pippen, ultimate teammate, right? He was quiet. They used to call him the silent assassin. And what he did for that team and many teams after on the Blazers and the Rockets, was he lifted everybody up around him, and he did it in a way that was tasteful, that was classy. And he did it in a way that was selfless. And so I look at Pippen as like the ultimate teammate. And then obviously you got MJ. What kid doesn't want to be the MJ of the industry that they're in? Right. And I'm not saying that I'm the MJ of that industry that I am, but I aspire to be, for sure, in my own way. I think what MJ really represents is the tenacity to never give up, and like he's given that to so many other athletes, right? Like, look at Kobe. Kobe had like Mamba mentality, and it's very clear that he got that tenacity from Jordan. If you look at, LeBron James, same thing. And so I do think that tenacity to never give up, to win at all costs, and to love the game. Like that's, I tell it to my teams all the time. They're like, why do you work so hard? And like, why does the marketing industry mean so much to you? And I always just tell them, it's just like, I just love the game. I love it. Like, I literally treat my industry as if it's my own NBA. I'm obsessed with the players. I'm obsessed with the moves that they make. I'm obsessed with the different strategies that they deploy. And it's become sometimes an unhealthy obsession to me. but it's one that drives me, hopefully, through my career to do bigger and more impactful things.
So Eric, you've been on a lot of different teams, and if we think about MJ, you think about the Bulls, and he was on that team for a long time, and you've obviously helped steer these brands in a very interesting way. So just curious, like as we're thinking about courage, coming into a new team, new brand, new communities, is there anything that you saw that was either unexpected or maybe a fear that you had going into these new jobs, or did you just come in with a ton of excitement?
I mean, it's always driven by excitement. Like first and foremost, like it's driven by excitement and an opportunity to do something different and impactful. I think a lot of the fears that I had early on is that, it's not lost on me that a generation before me, you stay in a job for 50 years, the end, right? Like that's like a thing. And like, I think that still trickles into today.
What a great story. Right? It's like 50 years of one company. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's like, I mean, and there are a lot of people like that, right? And that's totally okay. Like again, I'm not here to say that that's the wrong way to do things, but I am saying that it's your story, man. It's your journey, and if you're led by the excitement of a new opportunity, and it just so happens to be at another company, and it just so happens to be at another brand or whatever, then go take it. I mean, I think it's again going back to NBA, going back to sports, like. Think about all the players that stayed on one team forever, right? Like one team forever. Kobe being a great example of that. Now think about all the great players that didn't, and they had they still have their legacy. They still have their iconic moments, and they still have, the love for the game. It's just they wanted a different path, and they wanted to see if they could do something different with different teams. So I do think that, my excitement has certainly led me in my journey, but also the excitement to build on skills that I didn't necessarily have from one job to another. Like that's kind of how I've always navigated my career is what can I learn from this new opportunity? What can I learn going from Nike to Snapchat? What can I learn going from Airbnb, which is an enormous tech company, very innovative, to Gap Inc., to starting a new brand for Gap Inc. Like, what can I learn there that I can take with me, throughout my career? And so, it's always been driven by learning. It's always been driven by the excitement to learn. And I don't think that's going to stop, to be honest with you. I think that that's something that's really baked into my DNA that I don't think is going to change anytime soon.
Well, I'm sure you're bringing in a unique perspective. I know when I've category jumped, you can kind of bring some of the experience with you and just look at things with a different lens. What about just building relationships quickly with team members and other stakeholders in the brand so that you can get things done in a quick amount of time?
Hard to do. It's really hard to do, to be honest with you. Because a lot of times you come into a team that's been there for a while. They have their own norms, their own traditions, the way they do things. And I think the biggest thing to come into another organization is to be open to changing, right? I think to have the courage to do that, to say, listen, I know you guys got your thing, but I'm going to come in and just let me learn, like, let me be a part of the squad and let me see how I can contribute in my own way, whether I'm leading the team or just a part of the team. Right. And being open to that. A lot of people aren't open to that. A lot of people come into an organization, stay closed, and they're like, I'm just going to do me. That's never been my approach. My approach is always with this mindset, like, what kind of friends can I make from this? Right. And the most amazing thing is I've made friends in every single company that I've brought with me in my journey. And I still talk to them, right? The people that I used to work with at Nike, like, I'm very close with them. Snapchat, same thing. And so I do think that I always approach it like, listen, I'm coming in as the new kid. Hopefully you guys like me. But I'm going to try everything I can to make sure that I can contribute, make this team hopefully better. And just try to, try to be friends with as many people as possible, because that's actually the most important thing to me, is not necessarily the work, because you're not going to remember some campaign over another, like 50 years from now. Like, hell no, you're going to remember the people. Like, that's always the thing. You're always going to remember the people.
How do you handle, the people that don't like you, or maybe, are on the fence? I mean, how do you approach that?
I approach it again, open mind, right? There are a lot of people that are going to be like, that don't necessarily like your approach don't necessarily like what you've done or whatever, and then they want you to stick to your own lane. I take my time with those people. I take my time with those people because I try to understand what is the hesitancy, but also I just ask them straight up, like, how can I help you? How can I help you? Like, that's honestly one of the greatest honestly one of the greatest statements that you can make to anybody, whether they like you or not, because that breaks down these barriers in a conversation that allows you to get to the root of the connection of a person to a person, right? You're not just here to float around everybody. Like, you're here to help each other. Like, Ryan, you reached out. And I think one of the first things that I said to you was, how can I help you? Right. Not knowing that I was going to be on the show. Sure. But like, I genuinely just want to know how I can make more impactful use of my time with everybody that I meet. And so I think once you say something like that, you realize those walls that keep you from them break down very quickly, because they're like, oh, like I think I could leverage something, or oh, they can make my work better, or oh, I think I could learn something.
I think that's a really nice approach, and it's good for the listeners. That's not just a strategy, but it's humility and being humble. And you're involved in a lot of advisorships, and I'm just wondering, how do you manage? I mean, in the roles you're in, it's time consuming. Then you have a lot of extracurriculars. How are you managing all your time with all the busyness? And I assume you have a family too, if I read correctly. So maybe you can just talk about that blend between work life and home life and all the other stuff that you're involved in too.
Yeah. So I'm a proud advisor for a number of different companies and nonprofits, right? I'm a board director for a nonprofit called Reimagine. I'm an advisory board member for Women in Sports Tech. I'm a proper advisor, a business advisor to Chinatown Market, Yumi, Wardrobe, so many others. And a lot of people have asked me, how do you find work-life balance? Like, do you just shut off at 5 p.m. or, how do you do it? And I always look at it like an integration. It's integrating all of these other responsibilities throughout your day while still being a father. And to be honest with you, I've always been driven, as I said before, by the love of the game. And it doesn't just stop for me between 9 and 5. Like, it just doesn't, right? Like, if you truly love your craft, and if you truly respect your craft, like, and if you're a golfer, you're going to hit golf balls after you go play. Like, you're going to hit golf balls. You're going to start putting, and you're going to start putting when you're, in line at the grocery store. That's the same way I look at this, is how can I continue to be more impactful by spreading myself a little bit further past my job into other companies that are younger, fresher, trying to be more innovative, can move faster. How can I do something with purpose, like joining a board of directors for a nonprofit? Right. So then I could take all the skills that I've learned from my job and these advisory roles and use it in a place that, they need, to further the community and help them. And then more recently, and this is definitely not scalable. I've been using that in the campaign to stop Asian hate. Right. Like, there's a lot of hate crimes happening against my community right now. And what I'm doing is literally unloading every single skill that I have, media training, marketing strategy, cutting assets, to help as many organizations as possible to get the word out there that, we are being attacked. And so, I'm trying to find a scalable way to do that, probably joining another nonprofit. But again, it's about seeing what kind of impact you can make with the short amount of time that you have here. And that's something that my grandfather taught me. He died when I was in my early 20s. And, one of the things that he always said to me was, like, he always wished he did more. And so that really hit me. That really hit me hard. And so, I don't know how long I could do this for. It's fun right now, but, the biggest thing to me, again, as it always comes back to, is like, how many people can I help with the time that I have here?
I'm no therapist, but that sure seems to make sense why you've done a million things, right? You're driven when you're someone you love tells you they wish they'd done more, and you're juggling 55 different things. And I know we did talk a lot about games and sports, but this is not a game. Like, it's been a fairly frustrating year for all the reasons we know. How frustrating has the last year been for you?
it's been devastating, to be honest with you. I think it's to see the type of pain that's out there in the world right now is different from when we were growing up, right? A lot. I mean, first off, you just have so many outlets to understand like where the pain's coming from versus just looking at TV, right? And I think that's the biggest thing is you see that. The second thing is you ask yourself how you can help, right? Like I remember in last summer, I remember thinking to myself, how can I help my Black friends? Like how can I use my community to help them, um and how can I just create a better world for my kids? Because the reality is like they're half Asian, not white passing, and they may be targeted with racism in their life, just like how I was, right? And how do I prepare them for that? But also, how do I prepare them to stand up, right? When that goes down. And so I look at the last year as probably being one of the most difficult years of my life, and a year that and as it comes into 2021, I've never cried as much as I have, since the beginning of last year, just because again, like there's just so much pain in the world, right? And you want to help, you want to try to do something. And that's obviously what prompted me to step up and become a leader for my community, over the past 2 months. It's that I was just tired of it. I was tired of it. And yeah, I got a lot of responsibilities, but as I've said to a lot of friends, if the only thing that my kids remember about me, right, at the end of the day, I think about my grandpa a lot about this. If the only thing my kids remember about me is being a marketer or a businessman, then I didn't do a good job with the rest of my life. Straight up, right? And so that's why I wrote what I wrote in that week. That's why I'm going on NBC tomorrow. It's to fight for my community and to leave a lasting dent in this racism conversation, because of my voice, hopefully 2 others speak up, and because of their voices, 3 others speak up, and I hope it does compound eventually over time.
Eric, I definitely want you to talk more about the Adweek article, because hopefully our listeners will go and read this article. But before we do that, by no means what I'm about to say is this equal or even, but I remember, so I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old, boy and girl. And when I wrote my book about courage, and then I really looked at, am I living the premise? And I'm like, oh shit, this book is about something completely different than what I thought it was going to be. I thought this was going to be, devious attempt to position the company. And I've got an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old that's watching every move I make. And It wasn't really until that moment that I realized, like, how could I write this book and not live the premise? For you, did you always have that awareness with your kids are watching you, or how would you remind me?
No, okay. Man, no way, man. Like, it didn't, like, I'm starting to get a little choked up, like just thinking about it. But like, so I wrote the piece, right? I wrote the piece in Adweek, and I thought like 500 people would see it. Like most of my pieces in Adweek, like talking about marketing or whatever. And then it grew to something different. Celebrities started sharing it, organizations started sharing it, and I realized I hit a tone. I hit a nerve, right? And I realized too, I didn't just hit a nerve. A lot of people were feeling the same thing that I was. And the next thing I knew, I get on an Instagram live with Henry Golding of Crazy Rich Asians, and we have a conversation in front of like thousands of people about what's happening. And then after that, I go on local news to talk about what was happening and how to raise more awareness. And it wasn't until I went on the local news channel KTVU, and I was in this office that you see me in right here, talking like this. And my wife, she sends me a picture of the broadcast, because it was live, of my son watching the broadcast. And it was the most powerful moment I've probably been in my life, because I realized he's never really going to remember my marketing campaigns, or he's never going to remember bonuses that I got He's not going to care about that, man. Like, he's 3 years old, right? But that picture, it just signaled to me that I should do something better with my life, you know? So it was really powerful to me to see that, because I just realized my kids are watching, and eventually they're going to ask me, what did I do during this cultural awakening that the United States went through and the world at large went through? What did I do? And did I try to help? And you ask yourself all the time, am I doing enough? Am I trying to help? Am I trying to make an impact? And so I realized at that moment that I want to create a better world for them.
It's so powerful. I think I've said this on the show before, your kids can be a mirror for you, and they can inspire you to take action. And, that's one of the big components of courage as we defined it. And, you talked a little bit about the response, and you're getting some media attention, but, as you've thought about this more, what else do you believe needs to be done? And in being that you're in marketing and talking about the media industry, how do you think that can be used as a vehicle to continue to inspire and influence?
Yeah, and sorry about that, guys. Just got a little just got a little emotional there. I mean, you guys have to touch. That's a tough question for me, right? I mean, yeah, it's like the reality is that the marketing and advertising industry is one of the most influential and powerful in the world. And that's why I wrote the piece. Like that's never been lost on me, whether it be my job at Nike, Snapchat, Airbnb. Like, I always knew that I had the ability to influence a lot of minds with just 30 seconds of work. Right. And that's the power of advertising, is that if you tell the right story at the right time, you change a lot of minds. Right. It's $168 billion industry. And that's why I targeted my plea to my own industries, because I know that as I watched the Super Bowl this year, they were promoting a lot of messages of hope, a lot of messages of, we did it, right? We did it. We got through November, and that was after a week of 5 straight attacks on my community. And they could have used a 30-second spot to say, we condemn acts of racism. We're going to be donating to these nonprofits. And, we stand with the Asian American community. None of them did that. And that's why I wrote it. Right. And so I think one of the ways that we can really affect change here is look at like the systemic values that we hold dear within these corporations. Are we actually hiring diverse cultures? Right? Are we actually including Asian Americans in diversity slates for hiring, which we're not? And the reason is because we believe that there's so many of us, right? And the reality is, just because there's so many of us doesn't necessarily mean we're in an impactful role to make change. And so how are you giving a path, these corporations, to these leaders to come up? How are you furthering things like the model minority myth, which says if someone that looks like me stays quiet, keeps their head down, work hard, you'll be successful? I've never subscribed to that, as you can clearly see. But there are a lot of businesses and brands that promote people that perpetuate this super destructive idea that you should be submissive if you're Asian. You should keep your head down. Don't call the cops, things like that. And the more that we can start to put on and give path to people that look like me that don't subscribe to that, the more that an entry-level Asian American kid, South Asian kid, East Asian kid will see that and be like, okay, good. So I can challenge, I can speak up. I just had a conversation with a friend that's at the Pentagon, and he was telling me that the Department of Defense no longer promotes Asian Americans that are the model minority. So, keeping your head down, stuff like that, because keeping your head down, staying quiet, not saying anything, not challenging, that's seen as incompetent in the Department of Defense. And it's crazy to me that something like the Department of Defense is ahead of brands, ahead of innovation, ahead of all these different things. The Department of Defense, a government agency, right? And so good on them, right? And so, I think one of the things that we can look at is how are we supporting our not just Asian community, but minority communities with better resources, better structures, better forums to speak up, versus speaking on behalf of them. But also, how are we aware of these nuances within cultures, like the model minority myth? How are we furthering that culture and through our biases? And how are we, making sure that we're finding ways to break down those things?
Yeah, a lot of this is education and acceptance. But I look at corporations and I just, I think about this quite a bit, and I've worked in the corporate environment, and it's almost like it's a big machine, right? And it's like you take people out, you plug people in, and the machine keeps going. And I know you wrote also another article on just around purpose and how important that is for a brand to focus on that and have kind of a reality around what that is and why they're in business in the first place. So my question is, what do you think is really holding back massive change within these big brands and corporations? And do you also believe that as younger generations come into more powerful, influential positions, that it'll change anything? Or is it just the machine that'll keep churning?
No. I mean, there's change coming, man. Like you can feel the wave, right? I think the biggest thing holding corporations back to changing is that it doesn't make money. At least that's what they believe. The reality is that they actually make more money by becoming more inclusive, because you're going to hit more audiences, right? You're going to hit more audiences. You're going to reach more communities. You become broader versus just focusing on one specific, demographic. That's education. Like that's systemic change, right? And I think all that comes into play as people from younger generations start to now become CEOs, CMOs, COOs, and they start to advocate for that, right? They start to advocate that, oh, okay, like this brand is not just for like, the suburban white family, but rather it's like it hits a lot more people, surprise. And just doing a lot of that hard work is actually opens the aperture, not just for the brand to expand, but for careers to expand as well. And so, I do think that there's a wave happening for sure. And that wave is something I always like to mention is that I think New York Times said it, by 2042, the minority groups in the United States of America will eventually become the majority, probably shorter than that, to be honest with you. At that point, brands, corporations, and et cetera, are going to have to say, oh, wow. Okay. So like, this wasn't a lie. This was actually a thing. We should have paid attention. And that's a lot of my purpose right now is like to push that thinking forward and say, that's actually like 2042 is like, that's in minutes from now. That's like in our generation, right? We're going to see that happen. And if you're not catching up to that right now or doing the work right now, it's going to be a very big awakening for you, much bigger than what we're seeing today. And so again, I think that change is happening for sure. It's happening incrementally. It's not like you turn the page and you're like, cool, new chapter. It's the right people at the right time in these right places that are affecting change.
Discount the brands that you're involved in, because there's like 75 that you're advising on right now.
So like outside of those 75, who do you think is doing a good job? This is maybe an unfair question, but that's kind of where I'm going. Like because it can't be incremental everywhere. And I agree with you that like, it's almost like politicians clearly have a track record that they can't figure out how to crack what's going on. But I actually think that brands, your brand is a country, right? What are the rules of that nation, right?
Yeah, totally.
That's the opportunity. So like, okay, what advice do you have? Like, don't go incremental, hit the gas now. Or is there someone that's doing it at a level that you're like, just follow what these guys are doing because they're killing it?
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Like, yeah, politicians can't, like, they've struggled to really understand what's happening, right? But the reality is politicians don't last forever. Brands, however, last throughout your entire life. Look at the type of cars that you drive, the type of socks that you wear, the type of coffee that you drink. They last for generations through presidential administrations, through economic swings, consistently, right? Consistently versus a politician is like there 4 years and gone another, right? And so I do think brands have a greater responsibility to present something a little bit more than their product, and that's purpose, that's values. And you asked who's doing it well. No one's doing it well. And the reason is because we're in this massive cultural awakening right now where every single brand and company is having a conversation within themselves of, oh my God, am I racist? Or have we been racist? Or are we doing the right thing? Are we discriminating women? And those conversations are super uncomfortable, super uncomfortable, but necessary to have at this time because we need to build better. We need to build more inclusivity, and we need to understand that we're actually stronger by being inclusive, stronger by asking really tough questions that, again, a generation ago, yeah, I would like to think that the people behind some of the brands or behind the Washington football team would never ever say, hey, is our logo offensive? But now we're having that conversation. So I don't think anybody right now is doing a great job because we're all doing the job right now. We're
See,
all
but
in
that
it.
so first of all, I'm a huge Washington football team fan. This now you're seeing me as a
Hey, there you go.
4-year-old
There you go.
boy. Okay, I call them the Washington Redacteds. That's a hail to the Washington Redacteds. Okay,
Yeah,
fine.
okay.
But to your point, like they weren't doing anything if it wasn't for other brands
Totally.
pulling, right? It became a money thing. And that's the power of brand. Like that
Yep.
became a power, right? The other brands on one side it became a purpose thing, and on the
Yep.
other side it became a money thing. So it's possible. Like change is possible.
It's possible, right? It's possible, but it's only possible if enough people are pissed off and willing to do something about it. And I think that had to happen. And I think if you look at like Black Lives Matter, that was a movement that was growing for years, literally years, and they're organized surgically. And like, I look at the Black Lives Matter movement, I look at the LGBTQ movement, I look at the climate change movement, and their infrastructure, flawless, right? And that's what I'm trying to hope. That's what I'm hoping to bring to the Asian American community is that level of infrastructure of like, who are the people in power? Who are the people of influence that could help? Right. But I think if you look at what all of those movements did was they were able to be loud enough to be heard by these brands because the brands were like, okay, this is something that we need to pay attention to because one, it's going to hurt our bottom line, but two, there are a lot of people that we need to start listening to. And again, it's part of this cultural awakening. And the cultural awakening definitely has dollar signs associated with it for sure. But again, it's about how do we provide more power to the cultural awakening that isn't just about a binary black and white conversation, but rather it's a conversation of really questioning and in a meaningful way everything that we've done, because we should always be evolving. Like who you were, if you're the same person that you were 5 years ago, like something's wrong, man. Something's wrong, right? And so I do think we should always be questioning: can I get better? Can I do something different? Should I be thinking about something different? And like that's a lot of work, right? That's a ton of work. Especially when my white friends tell me like, Eric, like it's a ton of work to do all this. I'm exhausted with everything that's happening. I'm like, yeah, me too, man. And they're like, it's exhausting because I have to think about cultural nuance. It's exhausting because I have to think about bias. It's exhausting because I have to think about how I'm coming off and who else is in the room and, all those different things. And I was like, yeah, now you know what it's like to be in my skin, man. Now you know what it's like to be in, my black friend's skin or my Mexican friend's skin. It's like, we don't just have to like excel at like an exceptional level, to be known and to succeed. We also have to do exactly what you just described at the same time. And what that is, all I'm asking is that if you do that, you gain a little bit more perspective. And if you do that, that perspective becomes empathy. And that empathy right there is how you start to whittle away systemic racism. That empathy is how you start to whittle away all the things separating us. That empathy is actually what's going to heal a lot of these conversations.
I think that's really valuable, Eric. This country is supposed to be based on, some values around freedom and unity around different perspectives, right? And humans, we have evolved and faced many things, right? If you look at humanity. And I think COVID kind of put things in perspective, and so many people want things to go back to normal and they'll never get back there. It's just different now, right? And going back to just corporate America, because I think there's a big responsibility here, right? There's a dichotomy of this short-term mindset around quarterly performance, right? That's kind of pressured in public companies from Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't really set you up for the long-term goals to realize purpose or even remember like what the purpose of the brand was about as it grew over time. And you see, I've seen this, in leadership, there's really a focus on, finance and revenue and the economics of the business. And how do you balance that and get away from this like power grab and greed and leadership to get to this area that you're talking about where there is perspective? And you said there's money in it, but I think like that's the dichotomy in the business world. Like, how do you get to that balance?
I mean, that's when change leadership needs to happen, right? I think you have a lot of people that subscribe to from a different generation of, winner take all, and I think that you have a new generation of people, millennials, Gen Z, et cetera, that don't believe that's the thing, right? It's not winner take all. It's about building a bigger table for everybody, having more equitable share. And I think that change is going to happen a lot sooner than we think, to be honest with you. Mostly because the world is changing. It's a global economy now. It's not just like US versus this and US versus that, but like it's you're starting to have like these great leaders come up and be like, and ask themselves, we cannot kill ourselves for short-term gains. That's not going to solve anything, right? And we have to start thinking about what the long-term commitments that we're going to make as a business, as a corporation, as a brand, not just to further our own community, but it actually furthers the brand, right? Because people care about brands a lot now. It's not like we're in the 1950s and we're like, okay, cool. Like this soap is like what I'm going to use because I saw this commercial, the end. People are like, no, let me Google this soap. Let me Google this soap and who's behind this soap. And are they using the right products? Are they using the right supply chain? What are their practices in HR? How diverse is their executive team? Right? We know how to Google now. And I think the thing is, it's that a lot of these corporations and these leaders coming up understand that it's not just about face value. And this is something that I always tell my other marketing peers is that what you're creating is a starting point for a conversation that your business, that your product, that how you show up, your supply chain should be able to answer. Like if I'm presenting your product in a commercial, if I'm presenting your product in an advertisement, then that all that is you presenting a conversation for a community to say, is that a product I stand behind? Because all I'm doing is just putting it in front of them, right? And so I do think that we are changing and we are becoming less there's less short-termism and more focused on the purpose and values of a company, because that ultimately is how you bring your product to life. Like if you look at, I don't know, Tesla, right? The purpose and values are very clear. The product represents the purpose and values in a very clear way. I think more and more businesses are starting to realize that and starting to be like, well, that should have been the model that we should subscribe to.
Yeah, I like the way you put that. Berman talks about the business apocalypse, and it's like if you're not able to be transparent or you have a facade in the way, personally or in business, you're never going to be able to really create that authenticity or belief. And those are buzzwords, but
no, for sure, right? And you had one of my greatest heroes on this exact podcast, Tony Hsieh. And Tony Hsieh is a hero of mine. And, I know in the beginning of this conversation, I talked about loving the game. I had a meeting with him back in like 2009, 2010. And he said he loves the game. And I thought that was the coolest thing anybody could ever say in business. Because I was like, you don't want to hear that from an athlete, but like, no, this dude loves the game, right? Tony Hsieh, everything you're saying about transparency, values, purpose. Look at Zappos. Zappos is a great example of that. And Tony Hsieh really represented that in a way that I've never seen it before, right? And so, I think you're right. It's like people like Tony, he set a great example and benchmark for all of us to hit, when it comes to that, for sure.
Yeah, that's a good way to individualize it and think about, one person at a time, enact change, right? And set great examples. And I think you're doing that. You've built a lot of communities in the digital space.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been thinking a lot about just community in general, going through COVID and how much you miss your personal community when you can't connect to them. And us as human beings, we need that connection, right? It's part of us being tribal and where we came from and the evolution of who we are as people. So can you just tell us a little bit about why it's so important to have community, build community, and also bring that into the brand conversation?
Yeah. I mean, I've always had this philosophy in my life, right? And it ties back to like why I loved the internet so much. I mean, the reality is, again, like we're not here on this in this life very long, straight up. Like this is a very short stint that we're on. You come into this world alone, you look for your tribes, and then you're gone. It's literally that simple. I don't want to like oversimplify it, but it's literally that simple. And I've always believed that if you spend that short amount of time bringing people together, you win. The end. You bring people together for a common interest, for a common good, for a belief in something greater than yourself. If you bring people together as you're leaving alone, you just did something really impactful. And so whether that's, again, for me, that's building community. And so whether that's in a brand that I'm in, whether that's my kids' play group, whether that's my own community for the Asian American community, bringing people together versus separating them, which a lot of people are trying to do right now. If you look at the internet, like that's like a whole thing. People are trying to separate us, divide us, polarize us. If you seek to bring people together, your life becomes a lot more purposeful. And so I have always told my brands, at the end of the day, people are going to love you. People are not going to like you. But there's always a community of people that are going to love you, and you need to harness that, because the more that you understand why they love you, the more that you understand why they advocate for you when you're not asking them to, the more you realize that this generation of customers have a lot more power than you think. And it's their stories that actually add texture to the brand. It's their stories that outweigh, the fiction that sometimes marketers create for the brand. And we're in this new wave right now that, GoPro started. I think Airbnb continued. A lot more brands are not taking advantage of this. Like, user generated content is just the platform for the community to advocate on your behalf. And it's just on you, the brand, to harness that. And so my call to all like advertisers and marketers that are listening to this is your job. It's your absolute job to no longer create, or create as little as you can, and just curate. That's it. Just curate around your brand, around your product, around your organizations. As you guys have a great following with the Courageous podcast, it's your job to curate why people love you, why people listen to you, what they take away from this, right? It's not your job to tell them why they should care. You're creating this alone, and you're just bringing more people along with you.
Yeah, I find it a little sort of ironic that we're living in the sharing economy. But are we really sharing? Right?
Yeah.
Are we really sharing?
Like, what does that? Yeah, like what does that mean? Right? It's like a sharing economy. It's like, yeah, you're sharing your possessions, but are you actually sharing
yourself
stories? Yeah. Right? And like, we're a storytelling society. That's where laws come from, traditions come from, religion comes from. And if we're just slanging products with no story attached to it, with no meaning attached to it, it becomes so cold and meaningless, and that's why I've always said, at the root of it, community is just about storytelling, and that's where, again, like, that's where you have family traditions. Like, family traditions aren't made, like, they're just like it's told from generation to generation, and it's your job to carry that on to the next one.
All right, so we're coming to a close here, Toda. But I got one more for you. Now I'm only going off of you're here for a short period of time. The end. Thanks for playing. Right. So, okay, let's humor ourselves for a second. Assume reincarnation's real. So you ran your lap. You blink. Welcome to the pearly gates. Okay, you're up there. I don't know who meets you, but someone meets you, and on the list. Okay, this is in the spirit of keeping this short. You have to come back. The only thing that's checked, by the way, is Asian male. Okay.
All right.
Now you get to choose. You get to come back. You got to choose black male, black female, Asian female, Indian male, Indian female, white male, white female. What do you choose? And
oh
why?
my God, man. That is jeez.
And by the way, you're also coming. I should say this. You're coming back to America, but you don't know when.
I don't know when, huh? I mean, obviously, I would want to choose a person of color. Like that's just, I think you make a lot more impact. And you say something different. I honestly too think you just have a different perspective, right? And this is assuming that I keep all my memories. That's like we're assuming that right now, right? It's a person of color, but I do think if I have the same soul and passion and willingness to change something, I would choose to be a woman of color. And the reason why I choose to be a woman of color is because women of color right now are underrepresented. And as you whittle down, as you go in the corporate ranks, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. It's smaller and smaller and smaller, the numbers there. And that's a travesty. That's a travesty. I'll tell you something right now. I would also choose to be a woman too. And hopefully I would be like a WNBA athlete. Because right now, I mean, straight up, you look at Bleacher Report, like 6% of all Bleacher Report posts are about women. Like 2% ESPN posts about women. Like I would hope, and this is how I'm raising my daughter. It's like, I would hope that you go and break that. You go and break that model right now and you shatter it, right? Because like you deserve your shine, you deserve your place in this, and like 2%, 6%, it's not going to cut it, right? And so I would want to be like, yeah, I would want to be a person of color. I'd want to be a woman and again, I don't know when this would happen. There's a lot of hypotheticals in this. Yeah, there's a lot of hypotheticals in this, but again, like I think there's a lot of power in that. That's why I say all these things because I'm a father of an amazing little girl. She's 18 months. She's a woman of color. And when you asked that question, I thought about what it would be like to be in her shoes as she grows up, and what kind of woman is she going to be, and what kind of fight is she going to have. And that's, again, like coming back to all of this. This is why I do what I do. This is exactly why I do what I do, because I want her to see her dad and be like, that's what I'm going to be. I want to be that and better. I want to be able to have a successful career for share and marketing and, all that good stuff. But I want to use that so then my people see me as someone that's helping. So my people see me as someone that's not okay with injustice. And for me, that's very important, because that little girl who's right now taking a nap, that little girl is the future of my legacy, is the future of our legacies. And she's going to carry on a history of people that are fighting. Her great grandparents were in the internment camps in Utah. Her great grandparents were in the Holocaust, and she has fighting blood inside of her, and I want her to capitalize on that, just as I want my son to capitalize it. But that's why I said that answer, is because I just picture my daughter, and I picture my daughter living her ancestors' greatest joys and hopes. And that's being a fighter and doing what's right for her community.
You want to know my answer?
What's your answer, man? What's your answer, man?
Asian male by far, because I want to work at Nike and Snap and Facebook and all the.
Oh, you set that. That's a softball for you, man. You set that one up. I appreciate that. I appreciate that, man.
I'll take. Well, it's awesome to see what you're doing. Keep rolling, man. You're Pippen, Jordan, and Robin all in one, for real. And
appreciate it.
I'm glad we finally got a chance to meet. And
likewise.
Thanks for coming on the show.
No, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it. Thank you.
If you enjoyed the episode, please give us 5 stars, subscribe, and leave us a comment.
If you like what you just heard, sign up for your weekly dose of courage at returnoncourage.com.